Okay, we've all been there, right? You're mid-recipe, maybe you're covered in flour, you're in the zone making something delicious, and then disaster. You realize you're completely out of butter.
But wait a second. What's that hiding in the back of the fridge? A lonely carton of heavy cream. Could this actually be the hero we need right now? Well, let's find out.
All right, let's meet our star player for today, heavy cream. Now, the most important thing to know about this stuff is that it is rich. We're talking somewhere around 40% fat. And that, my friends, that super high fat content, that is the secret sauce that makes this whole transformation possible.
So what exactly are we trying to make here? Let's get a little official for just a second. Did you know there's a legal definition for butter? Yep, it has to be made exclusively from milk or cream, and it needs to contain at least 80% milk fat. So really, our mission, should we choose to accept it, is to take that 40% fat in our cream and basically double it. And this right here, this is our goal. A standard stick of butter is at least 80% pure, glorious milk fat. The rest, it's mostly just water with a few milk solids hanging around. So our entire job is to figure out how to get all that fat to clump together and squeeze out most of that water. And that brings us to the most exciting part, the great butter transformation. We're going to look at the actual science behind the churn and see how we turn this liquid gold into something solid and perfectly spreadable. So you might think the secret ingredient is some complex chemical or a fancy technique, right? Nope, it's just one thing: agitation. Seriously, that's it. Shaking, whipping, stirring. All you're really doing is getting those little fat molecules moving. And I mean moving violently. Okay, so what is actually happening on a microscopic level? Well, as we start shaking or whipping that cream, we're basically creating this controlled chaos. Inside the cream are these tiny little fat globules, and each one is wearing this little protective membrane, kind of like a coat. As they get slammed around, they start crashing into each other over and over again. And with enough force, those little coats just break right off. And once they're unprotected, the fat globules are free to stick together. They start forming bigger and bigger clumps. It's like a giant fat globule party in there. And after just a few minutes of all this chaos, something truly amazing happens. Butter makers call it the break. It's this magical moment, and you can literally see it happen. One minute you have fluffy whipped cream, and the next, poof, it turns into this grainy, separated mixture right before your very eyes. It's so cool. This right here is butter's big break. It's that moment of separation where our cream has officially split into two totally distinct and super useful products. And here they are, the great divide. So on one side, you've got these solid clumps of butter fat. And hey, that's our butter. We did it. And on the other side, that's the liquid left behind. And that, my friends, is real, honest-to-goodness buttermilk. It's actually way thinner than the cultured stuff you probably buy at the store, but it's the original.
So we've made butter. How awesome is that? But, our journey doesn't stop here. Now that we know how it's made, let's take a quick look at the wider world of butter. Because trust me, not all butters are created equal. Yeah, check this out. You've got your standard salted butter, perfect for toast, right? Then there's unsalted, which is every baker's best friend because you can control the salt in your recipes. Ooh, and cultured butter. That adds this amazing tangy flavor. Then you get into the fancy stuff like rich European butter, which has an even higher fat content. That's the secret to those incredibly flaky croissants. And of course, there's whipped butter. They infuse it with nitrogen to make it all light and airy, but yeah, probably don't try baking with that one. All right, just when you thought you had a handle on all things butter, have you ever heard of butter powder? No, I'm not kidding. It's a real thing. And honestly, it's kind of wild. Now you might be thinking, oh, it's just dehydrated butter. But actually, if you just remove the water from butter, you get ghee, which is totally different. To make a powder, the most common way is something called spray drying. They melt the butter, spray it into this super hot chamber, and the water just evaporates instantly, leaving behind this fine, well, magical butter powder. And here is where it all comes full circle, right back to our hero ingredient. Here's a super fun food science fact for you. You can't really freeze-dry butter at home, but you know what you can freeze-dry? Heavy cream. And you can just rehydrate that stuff later and churn it into butter whenever you want. See? In the end, it all comes back to the cream. So, with all this talk about making butter, you might be feeling a little inspired. I mean,
Could this be your next big DIY project in the kitchen?
All right, let's just answer the big question once and for all. Can you make butter from heavy cream? The answer is a giant, creamy yes. Absolutely. And you know what? It's not just possible, it's actually surprisingly easy.
And I'm going to tell you exactly how to do it. Seriously, just pour some heavy cream into a food processor or even just a jar with a tight lid. Process it on high, or if you're using a jar, just start shaking like crazy. You just keep going until you see those solids separate out. Then, strain away that liquid buttermilk and give the butter solids a quick rinse under some cold water. You'll want to knead it just a little bit to squeeze out any leftover water, maybe add a pinch of salt if that's your thing, then just shape it. And that's it. You've officially made your own butter.
So now that you know the secret, this delicious little transformation from cream into butter, I just have one last question for you. What are you going to spread that fresh homemade butter on first?